talk. Real talk. Real talk.
Hey, what's happening? Ezekiel
and Sarah
here today for another episode of Marriage Matters Live.
Yes.
Hope you guys are seeing us loud and clear.
Yes, please let us know.
Do just shout in the comments where you're coming from today. If you're watching this on the replay, let us know in the comments where you are, when you're watching this, where you're watching this from. Sis,
hey, babe.
What are we talking about today?
What we're talking about is what we're talking about. Yes. Conversations.
We are talking today about
love,
sex, and politics.
Oh, is it?
Okay.
Oh my days, that's so funny.
Go on. You go for it.
Real conversations.
100%. 100%.
Which obviously include
love,
all of
sex,
those
and politics.
Exactly. So yes.
I'm just trying to find you guys' comments right now. Forgive me if I'm not giving you the full attention as I usually do. I think I got you right now. Yes, I do.
Yes, I haven't seen any yet.
Super. All right. So, how's everyone doing today? How is everybody doing today? How are you all? How's your week been? What's going on? Again, if you're watching this after the fact, put it in the comments. How has your week been? What's good? Yeah, so...
High five, babes. We made it.
Listen, if only you guys know some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You can join our Patreon. No,
I'm playing. So funny.
I'm playing.
Like,
soon come.
Subscribe thing. Do that one.
Yes.
And share it as well, because obviously we're having, we're talking about real conversations today that obviously married couples should be having. And also not even, we say this a lot of the times, even if you're not married yet and you are joining us on the program, on this show, because you want to, when you get married, you want to have a healthy, strong marriage. So you're kind of like preparing, aren't you? You're preparing.
Come on now.
So feel free to share this to your friends who are, who may be courting, who might be newlyweds. I know I just sent this to a newlywed, so hopefully they do join us today.
Join us. All right. So
yes.
I think it's time to cut straight in. Let's cut in.
That's
so
right.
Look, the reality is we share this all the time.
Yes.
Friendship is the foundation.
That's right.
To your marriage, all right?
Definitely,
Listen, you don't want to be married to someone who you're not friends with. You know what I'm saying? What's some of the dramas of being in an unfriendly relationship, says?
Oh gosh, there's loads of dramas. I think the first thing is, for me, the number one thing that's coming to my mind right now.
Tell me.
Is not knowing the person.
Yeah.
Not knowing them, really, really knowing them.
What's wrong with not?
You only kind of
them?
know someone on the surface, isn't it? And I don't think that's how. I don't think a married couple should only really know each other on the surface. But then again,
Tell me, I'm listening.
I think that's why it is important to be friends first. And like when we say friends, well, when I say friends, I mean like real friends, as in being there, knowing the person, supporting them. Just saying hello to everyone who's saying hi to us in the comments. Hi. Yeah, and just really getting to know someone.
Yeah.
You know, what I'm trying to say.
Got you.
When they behave in a certain way, do you correct them or do you just kind of leave them to get on with what they're getting on with? You know, I was talking to a friend the other day and she was saying to me that one of her friends just knows her. She's real talking. Like, yeah, you can be all up in your emotions, but I'm still going to tell you the truth.
Straight.
However you take it's how you take it.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation that she's having with her friend.
Yeah.
And for me, that's a similar type of conversation that couples should be having. It shouldn't be when you say something to me that I should get hurt every time you give me some real heavy talk.
Yeah.
You know, I should be able to take it with the understanding that you care for me, you love me, you're looking out for me. You're not saying it because you're trying to be spiteful. You're not saying it because you're just saying it. You know, you don't really just say things for the sake of saying it. I'm the opposite kind of thing. I can just talk, but yeah.
Listen. So if ever I'm seeking counsel from any of you guys on our relationship, you heard what she just said then, yeah? So you got that fresh, all right?
Yeah, you know, I mean, because you do have people who just kind of like to talk because for them it's a way of them expressing themselves.
That's right.
It's an expression.
Yeah, that's right.
Again, it depends on what's being said, obviously, isn't it? It depends on what's being said because conversation's like an art anyway. You know, it's like art. You can take it how you want to take it. I can take it how I want to take it. But if it's well painted, if it's well put together, you can't mistake it for something else. You know, like you've got those abstract paintings. It's like, oh, what do you think that is?
Yeah, abstract.
Oh, what do you? Yeah, what do you think that is? And then you've got a painting of a bridge and a dog on the bridge. It's a painting of a dog and a dog on the bridge. Like, what more is there? Obviously, with art, you know, someone's like, oh yeah, but you know, the dog is doing this and the dog, you know, kind of thing. But yeah, so conversation is like an art, in my opinion.
Conversation is an art. You're saying
it's an art.
It's more art than it is science, basically. Yeah?
Definitely. I think. Obviously, you're probably gonna be nice science. Let's
not travel down that road right now. What
I
I did want to say is I like your earrings.
Oh, thanks, Ace. You're so sweet. I like your face. Anyway, it's now's not the time. Marriage Matters.
So, all right. So, conversation. Failing to be friends in a relationship can cause all sorts of dramas.
Definitely.
All sorts of challenges. All sorts of problems can ensue.
Yeah.
And you've highlighted some of the perspectives that you have fundamentally, not really knowing the person. And I don't want us to really we got a video coming out, one of these Marriage Matters live streams a couple months down the line. I don't want us to talk about that now. So let's not really bleed over into that. But
yes, okay.
What I think is useful is for us to really focus on the conversational style. Right. I think that your conversation is determined by the type of relationship or friendship you have.
Definitely.
So when people meet, like, I got some friends that are just free. Yeah, and maybe I got some friends that have no filter. So there's two sides of the spectrum. So some just have liberty and they're open to having discussions with most people about most things in a kind of respectful, cordial way. I've got other friends who are a bit more, you know, kind of off the cuff, really no filter.
Rugged around the edges on how they say things.
You know, they just put it out there, basically. But I feel as though maybe in certain relationships, some of that is a defensive mechanism. You know, when you're kind of a bit self-conscious, when you've had a kind of past or so, you kind of present those things. And I think this is extremely key when new couples are coming together. People are meeting each other for the first time. Yeah. It's important to understand if your conversation or if the conversational style of the person you're dealing with is genuine or if that's kind of just the outer shell. We spoke. Are you okay there?
Yeah, I can see a bit of my hair sticking up.
Okay, so so we spoke. I think we spoke a few episodes back about the inside kind of voice in a relationship, and I think we've got another. Maybe that might even be next. I'm giving it away now. That might even be the next stream that we've got coming out. But I think what's important for us to understand and evaluate is how much of my spouse am I truly engaging with in conversation. This is powerful because if we're real deep friends, and we say it to you guys all the time, you hear us talk about it, we talk about the most awkward things. And like, I don't mean for us, I just mean if you were sitting in a room with us, you might think, well, that's a bit awkward kind of thing. But we have that liberty and freedom to talk about all kinds of stuff. I'm smiling because I'm thinking about some of the stuff we could talk about. But I really think that's founded in our friendship.
Yeah, definitely.
And-
Definitely.
Go on.
Friendship, time, knowing, you know, if I was to bring up a conversation that we would continue on in it, you wouldn't just shut me down. Or if you brought a conversation, I wouldn't just shut you down and
Yeah.
be like, I'm not talking about that with you,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Or, and also that freeness as well, to understand that I can be free with you and talk to you about anything. And I think that's I guess what we really want to establish here, probably for couples to take away, is that you should be able to be free to have any conversation with your husband or your wife, and feel safe while having that conversation.
I think so. I think so. I think that's, what are we building? We're building a foundation in our relationship by having a good friendship and being able to build on our agreed friendship with openness in conversation. I think that's massively important. So let's not talk about the stuff that we talk about, but let's maybe think about
Private.
let's maybe think about relationships, new couples, and the boundaries that they can cross to deepen their conversational style, to deepen their relationship and their friendship. So let's we had a conversation, all right, last weekend, all right?
You do.
Follow me. And in that conversation, we're having a discussion about, we weren't alone in conversation. So we had a discussion about, or it came up in the discussion about two people being together. And, you know, one person waking up in the morning, when they wake up, they hear this other person gossiping about someone else, basically. And the third party, trying to be careful how we open up now, the third party was kind of like, you know what, that's not really the kind of relationship I feel is fruitful. Do you understand? So I think, is the first thing in relationship conversations really about being able to set boundaries, being open enough and bold enough? We talk to you guys about hard questions all the time, but is it really about being able to say, hun, can we really talk about, can we lay out some conversational boundaries? Just to say, you know what, these are the things maybe I'm not too confident about talking about, and then these are the things that I'm open to talk about. And obviously it takes even a strong character to initiate that conversation in the first place. But what do you guys think about that? Did you guys have things those married folk, right, in the initial phase of your relationship that you refuse to talk about? Were there things that, you know, if I say that, they're gonna see me a particular way? If I say that, I feel like I'm starting off our relationship on the wrong foot. Those kind of things there. And to those are my single folk, those people here that are courting, my brothers and sisters, same thing to you guys. When you're on a first date, tell me about first date, first interaction, first meeting someone. What are the things you definitely do not talk about? And what are the things you do talk about? And I'm talking about the level after small talk. So we've got small talk.
Yeah.
Hi, how you doing? The weather's nice. Those kind of
what
things.
You know, what do you do for a
boom,
living?
boom, boom.
Blah blah blah. How many
But
siblings
then,
do you have?
but then when you break forth from that level, talk to us about the conversations that you intend to have, you choose to have, and the conversations you choose not to have.
I was going to say, for me, I think that, you know, one of the things that I think is extremely important when two people have, let's say, crossed that line and they are, because I'm just thinking to myself, wait, should this, what I'm about to say, and you know, you guys feel free to help me as well, should it be a conversation that's had before they get married, in the sense of like they're engaged now and they've got their date set and, you know, they're getting very close? Or should this type of conversations that I'm about to say be done after they're married? Because, you know, we do know that
Say that again. Before
or after, right? Because we do know that some people get engaged and they don't get married anyway. And then so is it, you've spilled all your business, you've spilled all the beans, this person knows everything, and they don't and they don't make that commitment.
And it doesn't go any further, right?
So this is why I'm saying, because I definitely think that hard conversations is definitely a way to build up a strong relationship. It's definitely a way to bring up a strong friendship as well, because then what you're saying is, you're saying to that person, I am actually trusting you right now to hold this and not hold it against me, but to hold this conversation and carry this conversation with me, right? So, you know, things like past relationships, past sexual partners, you know, jail time. I don't know. Has a person ever been to jail? What's the, you know, do they have a bad criminal record, is what I'm trying to say. What type of, have they had any medical history? Conversations like that. Did they get on with their parents? Did they not get on with their siblings? Are they extremely friendly with women? Are they extremely friendly with men?
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, oh, you know,
So
like,
this guy-
I mean,
guys-
when
this guy
when I say that, you know, for me, the type of conversation, like, yeah, I've got loads of male friends.
Yeah.
Like, this is a woman telling her husband to me, I've got loads of male friends because this is how I grew up. This is where I met this person. I grew up in this area, and I was you know, a bit of a tomboy at the time. Blah blah blah. So I had that's a conversation that needs to be had, because if these friends are still in your life.
Yeah.
Your husband needs to know why they're still in your life.
Yeah.
You know, so having these type of conversations, I feel, for me, is extremely important.
Yeah.
Women need to be telling their husbands or their husbands to be if they've had, previous pregnancies. You know, because you might meet someone they don't have a child, but they might have had a previous pregnancy. You know, so things like that. Because a lot of times people really just think conversation is just something's on the surface. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, we talk about things that come up at the time. You know, or we talk about things that come up at work, or we talk about things that we don't like. You know, people need to be able to go past a certain place in conversation to really know if they actually have a good, strong, foundational conversation level with their husband and wife.
Yeah.
Right? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
I think you're right. I think that boundary needs to be broken. But you highlight a super important question, which is
Pre or post.
Yeah, should it be before? Should it be after? And I think,
Please,
like,
guys, let us know in the comments what you think on that.
What are your thoughts on that? Like, for me, mainly, I genuinely feel, as always, there needs to be a spiritual element to our relationships.
Of course.
So for me, minister, well, the first thing I'm going to say is, you know what? We need to be led by the Spirit of God. There needs to be a massive God factor in terms of when we do certain things, why we do certain things, and how we do those things. So I think that's a major key up. Like, I think it would be dangerous for me to say to everyone now, yeah, do speak to everybody about everything before. That's dangerous. Or, but you don't know it's going to be everybody. That's what I'm saying. So, like, for our quote unquote daters on the street, daters, yeah.
Be careful. That's what we say. That's what we say. Don't date, because you start dating and you start airing out all your business and start having certain conversations and start feeling sweet and close with someone. Like they're your most trusted confidant, and then all of a sudden he or she's just like, sorry, I don't want to be with you anymore.
And this is the drama. This is why
heartbreaking.
And look, there's nothing like don't wish that on me, or don't prophesy that over my life. Look, these are the realities of life. Like, we need to be realistic.
True.
You can't be a person who does not pray, but you expect God to move for you. You can't be a person who doesn't work, but you expect, there to be a consistent flow of money from an employer coming into your account. It doesn't work like that. Relationships need to be worked and engaged in much the same way.
That's right.
So, of course, we have to be realistic in these things. We have to be realistic. God is a realistic God. All right? So, I think there needs to be a greater focus on the leading of the Spirit in terms of the conversation. What I would say is that going into a relationship, as I've said to you guys on a number of occasions, we're in agreement, hard conversations need to be had early. Hard conversations don't mean exposing your whole life. It might be, how do you handle money? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like you're on a date with someone, if that's your cup of tea, and you may need to ask these questions because this is the first time you're really delving into this new space with this individual. Some people are like, oh no, don't worry, we'll talk about money after we get married. I've shared these kind of stuff with people before. Counseling a brother, saying to him, look, you're going to get married, ask her these questions, fill out this spreadsheet, make sure you've got clarity here. Failing to do that can cause problems later, and hence problems ensued later. Like, we know the story. So these things are really important for us to acknowledge. There is groundwork to do, and it's important to do it early on. Let's not deviate. Let's focus on the whole conversation thing. So before or after is key. Yeah. And you made a powerful point about the boundary. Crossing that boundary helps us to develop our relationships. Yeah. In initial engagements, somebody may be asking hard questions and it pushes the other person back. Yeah. That may be what you want. You don't want to engage with somebody who's failing to have that degree, that level of commitment with you. Yeah. This is super important. Yeah. So I think that's a major factor for us to always focus on. One of the big things for me about relationships and couples is talking about the future. I think talking about the future is massive. And that starts from these initial courting phases. Yeah. This starts from the initial, it's like, and not to reiterate what we've spoken about before, but just simply, how serious are you about your faith? How many children have you thought about having? and it's important because a person wants to know 5 years down the line, is their children going to be brought up in a Christian home, or are they going to be going to another religious place? Do you know what I'm saying? These things are important to understand at this early stage so that we can develop in these things. So I know you got some stuff to go. So I'm gonna go.
No. I mean, for me, obviously, a conversation is about getting to know someone, isn't it? Right? It's getting to know someone, and then once you've known that person, it's keeping track. Okay. Because if couples come home, and I think we spoke about. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before.
Well, it definitely wasn't last week.
No, not last week. The week before, about the mobile phone and the spouse.
Yeah. I brought up the article that I'd read.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, people have conversations on social media. You go on your Instagram, start having a conversation with someone, or you go and you start liking someone's thing. You're expecting a response. That's initiating some kind of conversation.
That's right.
So for me, if spouses come home and they're not engaging in communication with each other, then already for me that's a sign that something is wrong anyway.
Come on.
Okay, so if your marriage is the type of marriage where you're both not engaging each other, the conversations are very generic.
Yeah.
Because we can have generic conversation with someone at work.
Yeah.
You can have generic
surface level.
That's what I'm exactly. If it's surface level and you find that it's always like that you've not sat down to actually have a heartfelt, deep convo, then it's a sign that the communication level in that relationship is weak. Is weak, and it's not just for me. It's not just weak. It's non-existent.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh yeah, we can talk about these things, but we just don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? It's like health, for instance.
Come on.
Like some people don't like to talk about health. Even when they get ill, they still don't say anything.
Yeah.
That itself is a major issue. Is a major issue. I at least know of 2 different families that it's been quite. A parent has passed away. And the spouse and the family didn't find out until only a couple months before they pass.
Yeah.
Now, that's a major problem because there might be things that need to be dealt with before the person's passed away. Fair enough, some people don't want to be looked at as a weak person.
Yeah.
They don't want to be dependent on anybody. They don't want to be looked at as a frail person or being cared for. So they just don't say anything. They just live their day-to-day life until boom, last minute they've got 2 or 3 weeks left, or that's a bit dramatic obviously, but a couple months. Yeah. And then it all kind of goes belly up because everyone's heartbroken at this point.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say anything? Why are we just finding out now? When were you going to these appointments? All of these kind of things. And that's why I think it's so important, because when you have conversations with your spouse, you will know when something's not right. You will know when something's not right. And again, obviously, it's the amount of time people spend together as well.
Yeah.
This is, and you know what, and that's the thing with conversation. It's not just about conversations, about the amount of time couples are actually spending together to have these conversations. Because everybody's got busy lives. Everyone's doing something, and there might just be a few hours in the day to conversate. But those few hours in the day that are supposed to be used for conversating are not being used for conversations.
That's right.
They're being used for other things. The husband comes home and he carries on with the work that he was doing at work just because he's trying to finish work. No, leave that and sit down and have a conversation with your wife and find out, because even the lack of conversation, I don't care what anyone says, is also another cause of what's that word again? Infidelity in marriage. There's no communication, there's no engagement, you don't know what I'm doing, you're not asking me what I'm doing, so someone else is paying attention, someone else is asking, someone else is doing this, someone else is doing that.
That's right.
And people are allowing someone else to fill their shoes.
That's right.
And then when it goes wrong, it's like, oh, but well, you just didn't talk to me. How many times have you heard when it's conversations like, oh, but we don't talk. You didn't talk to me. You didn't ask me. Oh, now you want to know. Oh, now things are going terrible. Now you want to sit down and talk.
Yeah, I think it's powerful. You're raising some powerful points, and that point there just about the whole infidelity, the adultery, that kind of stuff there. I think this is a key area where people feel they belittle conversation. I say this all the time. I've said it so many times while ministering, and it's like, just because you can talk don't mean that you should. That's and this is one of the challenges. I think people feel because they have a mouth that talking is something they don't need training for. You understand? If you're gonna do public speaking, if you're gonna speak in front of a group, if you're gonna if there's if you've got like a piece at work or at college or uni or studies, you think, okay, talking now is important. Now talking is a thing. It's a major. But before that, it's not a major. And I remember as a young boy, I had a friend. Edward, I say no more. And Edward really kind of schooled me. I was real young, and Edward would school me in the way to engage with females. And he just had a way. There's two significant guys in my life actually. In respect to that, it was Edward and there was Michael, two of them. Some of you might know Michael. Not many people know Edward, but it was powerful because he was like, your smile is important.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And like he had this three-part code. First was the smile. He called it set, yeah. I gotta go into it, but
you really remember. That's so sweet.
Yeah, it was but the T in set was talking. And he was like, look, the talking is key, the talking is super important. And I think as a young boy, like you're taking this kind of instructions from someone older, like this was an understanding that was being given to me that talking is actually valuable. When I was in secondary school, they were awarding us for speaking and listening.
Yeah,
do you understand?
That's right.
And my dad has been a major influence in terms with respect to us in terms of the way we communicate. He would always be like, when you go to school, make sure you call your teacher sir. But I said, like, Dad, what if they tell me to call her by her name? And he took language and communication super serious. And I think this is one of the issues. We don't have that input, that insight to the fact that talking is actually spiritual power. We don't understand that. And you are engaging and enhancing your spiritual connection with your spouse when you talk. And I think this is one of the issues. So many people talk so much garbage that they feel as though talking is garbage. You talk about someone's sports, you talk about the weather, you talk about so much things that you feel have a lack of significance that there's no point in talking. When it's time to even have
a strong, real conversation, there's no substance.
Do you understand?
To it, yeah.
So it's like every conversation is substanceless. Do you understand? That's the perspective, isn't it? But what we need to do is we need to regain the value of talking, relearn the value of education, of engaging our spouse in talking. And once we've kind of recouped that importance, that value, then we need to set out on a pursuit to talk more, to understand that, it gets me, a lot of people think, I know I put sex, politics, and what was the other thing on the thumbnail, but the reality is people think intimacy is sex only. They genuinely think that sex is intimacy.
Yeah.
You don't know that when I sat here and I said to Sarah, girl, those earrings look nice. Like, that was a degree of intimacy, and it was heartfelt. I meant it. I saw her, looked at her. The earrings looked nice on her, the way she dropped it. I'm just like, those earrings look nice. And what's happening here that you made, and you heard her quickly. She was like, oh, your face looks nice. And she was like, come on, what did she say? We're here for marriage matters. We're here for marriage matters. And this is what I'm talking to you about. It's like, it's about taking those moments. That was but a moment to acknowledge you and say to you, honey, that you dropped it well today. Yeah. And we belittle those things. It's like, the big one for women, so I've heard, is you don't say I love you enough. Do you know what I'm saying? Some men have got that, have that same scenario as well. You don't say I love you enough. And I love
Although we know there are some men who say it more than the women.
And it's like, the reality is, it shouldn't be so much about the I love you. It should be a combination of the expression of conversations. That's right. And then, obviously, from time to time, you may say, oh, babe, I love you, babe. But the reality is, the more we talk, the more there is that talk is a demonstration of the love from one to another.
But also, funny enough, though, I think on the point of that I love you thing, right? I do believe that sometimes, when we say, we're made to believe that the more we say something, the watered down it gets.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you say, I love you, I love you, I love you all the time, I feel like the world has gotten us to a place where when we repeat things so much, it makes the other person feel like it's just a word now.
It's a throwaway statement.
It's got no hard meaning. But every time I tell you I love you, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Yeah. And likewise, I expect every time you say it that you mean it from the bottom of your heart. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's something that we have to be aware of, because, you know, it can be a thing of where some people actually don't say it that much because they've been, conditioned to think that if I say it too much, it's now going to have no meaning. It's now going to have no substance. It's going to have no weight. So, you know, husbands who probably don't say it to their wives as much, or wives who, because you know what, another thing, you have, conversation is something that I believe starts from very early. Okay, and I do believe it's something that starts from very young. Like, I grew up with quite a lot of siblings, so there's a lot of talking going on in the house. Yeah. My mum's very much of a talker. My dad was more on the quiet side, you know, for a few words in here and there. But when he's ready to talk, he will talk, and you'll be like, all right, Dad, don't got bed, you know, kind of thing. But once he started. But, you know, but you'd have to really get him,
prompted.
you'd really have to get him going. Yeah. So for me, having conversations with people wasn't that difficult because I grew up with 6 other siblings.
Trust me, I remember.
Plus my mum, you know. So I grew up with at least 7 people who constantly spoke a lot, and it wasn't just them speaking. We had people come to the house and friends and all that kind of stuff. But you have people who literally grow up in a very quiet environment. The mum and dad don't talk that much, maybe because of the way they've been raised, or it could be their beliefs or whatever it is, that they don't engage in conversations as much with their children when they're growing up. So people do grow up not being so strong in conversation. It's not that they cannot talk. I mean, and I'm sure, like, you know, if they were to start talking, you think, oh wow, like you actually do have a lot to say, but they just don't. And it's not that they don't want to, it's just because that's how life has they've been raised. So sometimes when couples get together, that's why having that conversation about finding out your spouse's past and your spouse's history is so important. Because if your husband starts to sit down and says to you, oh, it was just me and my mum, you know, we didn't really have that many people around us, you would already, you'll be able to gauge, okay, so he's not really much of a talker. I have to make him talk to me. You know, so you now have to understand your husband and say, okay, these are the things that I have to do to draw conversation out of him. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because a lot of the time they're just like, oh, you just don't talk to me. What's that about? You know, we can't just get attitude just because something is not happening our way. Do you get what I'm saying? And then again, it could be the wife. She might have been, you know, I'm saying husband, wife, and blah blah blah. But you know, you get either way, you get my point, right? And you know, it could be a woman who she grew up in an environment where she was constantly spoken to, shouted at, told to do this, told to do that, la la la, clean the kitchen, da da da, do this, go and do it. And she's kind of grown up like, you know what? I had enough talking when I was growing up. I just want to be quiet in my corner. I just want to read a book. No one disturb me. My life is cool. And then she gets married and she still has that, you know, that kind of approach. Hun, I'm just going to go and sit in a quiet corner and read a book, sip on a glass of Pepsi, I don't know, whatever, some water, and just be in her corner, because she grew up in an environment where there was too much talking. It wasn't her thing, so she disengaged with that. So the reason why I'm saying this is because we have to remember that we, you know, when we come together, we're coming from 2 completely different places. However, we're trying to make this one. Okay, and in order to make it one, we have to get to know each other deeply. I mean, get the claws out, you know what I'm saying, and start scratching surfaces that you would never expect to scratch. And this can only happen through conversation. Right? And I think that's why it's so important for us to understand what we're talking about here today, especially when we're talking about our marriage. Okay? Because if you look at most situations, look at your marriage, look at how you met your partner, your husband and your wife. It started off with a conversation. And the conversations led on to another conversation. And it led on to a conversation that you actually enjoyed.
That's right.
And you wanted to speak to that person even more. And then you realize, actually, I want to talk to you for the rest of my life.
Come on.
So you made that decision. Okay. But then people cross that line and they're like, oh, okay. And then they feel comfortable to go into their shell now. But then again, think about that person that you did not marry, that you could have been married to. Okay. Think about how that went. And why didn't you end up marrying that person? Do you see what I'm trying to say? Because a lot of times people can just be looking at things like, oh yeah, but them and the ex had a great communication. Their communication was great. So why didn't you marry that person?
Yeah. 'Cause-
Communication can solve a lot of things.
Yeah, because it's more than communication, isn't it? Like, I think there is such an abundance of layers. But
Definitely. We're just like scratching the surface,
Yeah,
obviously, with this, you know.
I think it's super important for us to understand that communication is intimacy.
Yes.
Conversation is intimacy.
Yes.
And if you want to grow and develop the intimacy in your relationship, talking is foundational.
Yeah.
Talking is foundational.
Definitely.
So we talk about you kind of saw the thumbnail. So what is your political disposition? It's like if I say to you, 5-6 years ago, we had a very different perspective politically. You understand? It's like we're a married couple, we love each other, we've got children, we're working together.
But we're on the opposite side of the fence when it came to politics.
And that's just what it is. It's just like when you look at the political spectrum,
Yeah.
there was a lack of agreement. And
Yeah.
I could see her perspective. I don't know if she could see mine.
Of course I could.
But obviously, the truth of the matter is, we agreed to have our views
bring
on
it
this
together.
would be different.
Yeah.
But with time, education, understanding, conversation,
That's
more conversation,
right.
more
That's
conversation,
right.
we came to see things from a more similar view.
Yeah.
And these are the things that will never happen on day one in your relationship.
That's
It's
right.
over time that as you grow and you develop that these things become to that with these things you come to find unity, so to speak. And it's not everything. It's not like I can't say to you today every subject under the sun myself and Sister Sarah agree on. I can't say that to you. That's not true.
no,
That'd be a
not
lie.
true. Yeah.
But the reality is we're happy to discuss those things,
yeah.
thrash those things out,
Yeah.
throw things across to each other, and developing that base is fundamental.
Yeah.
It's fundamental.
Yeah, because as well, you know, I think it's important as well for couples to, like what you just mentioned about having conversations and understanding your differences on particular things. Because let's just say, you know, you go to a big, you know, you're at I don't know, couples night in or whatever, and it's you, your husband, and you know, a few other couples,
Yep.
and you start talking about certain things, and your husband says something, you're just like in complete disagreement. You don't even know where he got that from. You're just like, honey, what did you drink? Who put something in your drink? Because I've never heard you say anything like that before. That was so random.
Yeah.
We shouldn't really be getting those surprises. It should be a thing of where you say something, I'm like, yeah, I've heard him make that point before. Although I didn't agree, but okay. But a lot of the times, if we don't talk about certain things, we can be completely thrown off.
Imagine he got heated. Like that's one of the and I think that lack of communication in private is one of the reasons why things blow up. You know, you hear these odd
That's
relationship
right,
where
that's right.
they're out, something blows up outside,
Yeah.
or the worst one, and it's like for the sake of saving face, okay, it works. But the worst one is where you go out, there's this like crazy tension. Your wife or your husband says something you don't expect them to say, and they're all talking, all like big conversation.
Yeah.
You say nothing. When you get out of there, it's like, do you know what I'm saying? Explosion. It's like, well, like, you know what I mean? Volcanic eruption. And those things happen because like it's a setup.
Yes.
If you would have discussed those things earlier on, it's like some people are like, but how can we discuss everything? Look, you should have a base. You're together for years.
Yeah.
Your focus is to be together for years. So along that journey, you've got room to discuss so many different things.
Because I was just going to say, obviously, like a newlywed couple, that could happen.
Easily.
But then you learn from those from that, because if that was to happen, you know, you'd go home, you'd have that conversation, you'd be just like, okay, but like, babes, where did that come from? Like, you've never mentioned that to me before. Let's talk about this a bit more, because I really want to see like why you made that point. I mean, I completely disagree with it, but let's see what. And then from there, that's you've just engaged and embarked on a journey that you would not have had if one person wasn't bold enough to say, let's talk about this a bit more. You're fair enough. You made your point out at dinner, but I want to hear what because other people talk. You know how it can be.
Yeah.
So it's just important just to be able to be as open and as, you know, honest as possible with your spouse. So yeah, I mean, for me, because there has to be a balance as well.
Yeah.
There has to be a balance. In conversation, there has to be a balance. Like, it can't just be one person talking, because that's not really a conversation.
It's like that for some people.
It is like that for some people. Like, I'm talking to him sometime and he's asleep, and I'm just like, Basie, listen to me. And he's like, yeah. You know, and then like, fine, good night, because I know he's tired. I shouldn't really be trying to have that conversation with him, but it does happen. You know, I'm just being honest. You know, but there has to be a balance where the communication is bouncing back and forth.
100%.
Was it monologue and dialogue, you know, kind of thing? So
not
it should, not a monologue. It should be a dialogue. You know, so there definitely should be a balance in things. And I was gonna say, like, obviously, again, couples come from different places. You might have a couple who's is very much of an intellect, and you have the other person who's more on a simple side.
Yeah.
You know, their level of intelligence is not as high as the spouse's, but they should still be able to, both of them should still be able to engage at a level where they are able to discuss things. It's not just like, oh, when the smart spouse or the highly intelligent spouse is with he or her other high intelligent friends, that they have deep conversations. And, you know, it's just like, okay, well, don't leave me out. I might not be, you know, on you lot's IQ level, but I want to know what's on your mind.
And I think that's really about having compassion and looking for common ground. Because some people would say, you know, doctors should marry doctors, scientists should marry scientists. Do you know what I'm saying? And,
No.
And I think this is where one of the challenges lies. Because really, when you engage in a relationship, we should be looking at, you know, all the spheres of life. Let's say there's 7 spheres. You should be discussing on all those spheres of life. And there should always be opportunity for us to develop our relationship. So if you've got like this woman, she's super smart, and you've got this guy who maybe is not as smart as she is, the focus would be, you know, there are other aspects of like, it's almost like she doesn't love him because of his intellect.
Oh, exactly.
Or he doesn't love her because of her their intellect. But they love each other because on these spheres, spiritually, we look at the soulish realm, physically, there are different degrees of attraction.
Together.
Exactly.
That's right.
And it's those things there that cause them to constantly foster that friendship, develop the conversations and grow. And this is one of the things, like some people, like, you know, we can give you like a date night prompt. Like that. These are 10 questions to talk about on date night, 10 topics. But the challenge with that is, if people give you those questions and they always veer in one direction, it doesn't leave for the dynamism of conversational growth. This is a problem. So it's like, always start with this question, always end with this question. It's like, cool, like, you're like, when you're on a job interview, that makes sense. When you're trying to build a dynamic relationship, you know, when you're trying to have conversations that spark intimacy, like greater levels of intimacy, some of the things I like about Sarah are the things that other people probably don't like about Sarah. And if that's one of the things, it's like, there are things about you that attract to me in our conversation. And some people might be like, oh, I really hate when people do that. But for me, it's like, those are one of the things I appreciate about you. And it's about really having the ability to conversate with someone at that level. It's like, let me be straight with you guys. So look, back in the day when we started out, I was like, look, like, I don't ever want to talk to you about my work. These are my work stuff. Like, work and our relationship is separate, right? Like, we can engage on this level, but I don't ever want you to engage with me on this level. This has nothing to do with you. This is how our relationship went on for quite some time, in the early days when we were dating, for quite some time. But as much as I felt... this is the...
Wait, you weren't working when we were dating. You were too young for that.
Okay,
they wouldn't even give you a job.
In the early days... in the early days when we were dating... This is part of what...
That is so funny.
This is part of what was going on. So, I'm being serious.
Oh, are you? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Sorry, guys, I gotta get this laugh off. Okay, but I'm back.
Yeah, it was the other kind of work, but yeah.
Oh, scheme.
Trying to date me, that boy. Does that make sense now? Yeah, you remember the conversation.
I got you.
So obviously,
sorry. Alright,
cool. So it was like, okay, like, so work is separate, relationship is separate.
Days.
So obviously we were thriving, and in terms of the areas I felt, quote unquote, were legitimate for us to discuss. So what I had done was compartmentalized our relationship.
Yes, you did.
And even still to today, I'm somewhat the same.
Yeah, you're still,
I try not to bring work
100%.
to you. Like, and it's like, when I say work, I mean, like, there might be stress and drama at work. I maybe will give you like a general high level. How was work? It was good. It's a couple projects, couple this and that. But try not to go into that deep stuff. So that our relationship can foster in other areas.
That's right.
And I think it's important not to create those boundaries. That was probably a mistake that I set up with us early on, saying, you know what, this is nothing to do with you, and this is all me and you. And it helped us in that we had an area to focus on. So we were focusing on going out, focusing on this kind of stuff.
I understood, okay, you don't really want to talk about these particular things, so let's not engage in that conversation and focus on something else.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So we grew in that way, but still, it meant that there was this air of mystery about my life. What do you do? Don't worry about that. Where do you work? Don't worry about that. How much do they pay? Don't worry about that. Do you understand? It's like, those kind of things are unhealthy, and it's not for this conversation.
That should not be going on
this is
in
my point.
anyone's
This is
marriage.
my point.
Please,
and
guys, that should not be happening.
This comes back to that discussion we were having some time back about joint accounts, and we need
Yeah,
listen.
we're
We're gonna
gonna-
have a full live stream about joint accounts soon.
I want us to have
think
a
we're gonna have
couple.
guest. I was gonna say, see, that's how you know.
We've
That's how you know.
got to have a couple.
We're
on
gonna
for
have a
that
guest. We'll have a
because-
guest couple in
yeah,
on that stream.
Definitely.
But we might even have two actually. But I
We're
think
gonna fit everybody.
we'll work it out. But I think
Part
that's,
1 and 2.
yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we can do
But what I think is important is for them to understand that it's real bad to have that degree of segregation
100%.
where there is this air of mystery. The reason, one of the major reasons is because you are cultivating a habit of secrecy
That's right.
and privacy
That's right.
in a zone where
And
there
you
should be
don't
full
want
transparency.
To be doing that. You don't want to be doing that. That is, that was just that was powerful and amazing. And I really hope that everyone listening is taking that away, because in our marriages there should be, and I keep saying this, there should be no cracks that the enemy can use to come in.
Come on,
Okay, now
to get out your spiritual filler.
that's right. Better than Gorilla Glue. Anyway, so and it's important for us to understand that the smallest thing can cause a massive issue.
Absolutely.
The smallest thing can cause a massive issue. Even though he was always like, don't talk to me about work and stuff. Like now, I'll still be like, oh, how was work? How was your day? What did you do? Because obviously I got to be a bit nosy, innit? And because I still need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
It's right. It's right.
And the funniest thing is, a lot of the time, some people feel like, oh, that's your department, that's my department. I don't really need to know what she's doing because she's doing, that's what she likes to do, or I don't really know where he's going because that's where he likes to go. However, when you start asking certain questions and bringing up certain things in conversations, you will be able to realize certain things that are happening without even being being told, basically.
Explicitly. Yeah.
Exactly. And then this is, in our marriages, we should be able to read each other. The same way we like to, read those posts, or for some people, because some people, they don't read no book, they just read posts.
That's right.
And some people like to read books, or some people like to read blogs and stuff. We should be able to read each other. Like, my husband could look at me without me saying anything and say to me, what's the matter? And I'll be like, oh, nothing. And he knows. I can try and put on a smile. I can try and laugh it off. But he just knows. I don't know if it's my eyes. He looks into my eyes a little bit too deep. I don't know. But he just knows. And he won't let go until I tell him what it is. And even sometimes I might not even know that I'm feeling something. I might be experiencing something, heavy. But then just from him trying to draw that at me, I actually realized, oh no, wait, there is something going on. Oh, yesterday was awful, or whatever it might be, and that might have, because these are the ways for us to continue to create a good, healthy relationship. It's not until someone is sick that they really need to get a doctor or need to get fit. People should be having checkups.
Come on now.
Yeah, so our marriages should be having checkups. We should be having health checks.
Come on.
We should be taking our marriages for walks, taking our marriages to the gym, putting our marriages on a diet.
Come on.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? A healthy diet, right? So, and for me, all of these things come in play with conversation, and not just conversation, obviously, but obviously today we're talking about conversation. But this is one way to build on your marriage through conversation. I mean, a lot of couples, this is another thing. How much conversation do you have about intimacy in your marriage?
Let's go.
Or is it just when lights are out? For some people, lights are on, so whichever, I don't know, but do you know what I'm saying? Is it just when you get to that point that's what intimacy is?
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But what conversations are you and your spouse having about the intimacy?
Yeah.
What conversations are you having to improve it?
Come on.
What conversation are you having to say, I just don't like that. I don't like, just don't touch me there, or whatever. I don't know. Because unless you are having these conversations, how are you gonna make it better? How are you gonna improve it? How are you gonna stop things from happening that keep happening that you just don't like or just don't agree with? Because yes, you're mine, yes, I'm yours. At the same time, we should be able to talk about the yes and the no's.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? So for me, even talking about intimacy is extremely important.
Massively.
But sit down and ask yourself right now, those of you that are married, when did you last have a conversation with your spouse about your intimacy level? in that area. Are you happy? Are you not? Are you, is it regular enough? Is it too much?
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying to say?
No, it's real
because
talk.
Exactly, real talk. And this is the purpose of us having this conversation today, because we know that marriages are struggling because they're just not engaging
there's a lack
on
of communication.
that level.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Like my husband's already mentioned about political views. Do you agree with the stance that your partner takes when it comes to certain things? Are they participating in certain things that you just don't think they should participate in? Even just like, I don't know, I think it was like, is it like Netflix or something? They agree with certain things, and if you just don't outright agree with that and your spouse is still paying for Netflix and you're just like, no, we shouldn't, that should be a conversation that should be had.
Absolutely.
And get the partner who is still paying for it to understand why you don't want, why you think you should cancel your Netflix subscription.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Because a lot of times people just think, oh, just a general conversation creates that great, bountiful marriage. Sometimes people are like, oh, wow, how have you not been able to be together for so long? That's because we talk a lot.
Trust me.
And I mean a lot. The conversations, like my husband says, go deep. I can ask him and bring up a conversation about absolutely anything and he won't feel uncomfortable. Even if he does, he'll come to a place where he's like, okay, we have to have this convo. Do you get me? And likewise, same thing for him. So for me, it's about just really getting into it. Like, and I really hope that what we're saying here is thought provoking. Right? I really hope it's really triggering some marriages right now.
Yeah.
Because if your marriage is literally come in, come home, eat dinner, play with the kids, have 1-2 conversation, done. There's work that needs to be done here. And there's work that needs to be done.
No, it's not the end of the road. This is the thing. It's like we might. You might hear us say some of these things and you might feel like, oh, you know what, you guys are making us feel like, oh, my conversation is dead, our relationship is dead in that sense. And as much as it may be, let's just be straight, as much as it may be in that area, it just takes a little bit of water. A tiny bit of water gives life a plant, to a seed. It's not a joke. So it's like you can really do it, but you have to be committed to watering that seed, which is your marriage. You know what I'm saying? Which is the God's word over your marriage. If you're willing to do that, the change will come. I was thinking about something just now as you were talking, or as you were just as you were kicking off. So one of the things that I think I talk to you about certain times is the dress sense of females in the offices I work in, basically.
That's why they didn't give me a pass in there.
So, and it's funny. It's like that.
Come start throwing robes over people.
This is one of the things we talk about certain times. It's just like she says, "May come and meet me at work at certain time for lunch or whatever it might be," and we have the opportunity. She may have the opportunity to see someone, meet someone, and like we converse. And it's not in a judgmental fashion. Let me make it clear. It's not that, oh yeah, you know what? This person's a heathen, who be dressed like a heathen. It's not that. But it's like we are open to discussing everything. You might think she's not at your workplace. What's that got to do with her? But it's like, I'm a man, a man chasing after God, who's married to a woman who's chasing after God. And I think these are important conversations for us to have.
Definitely.
So that she's aware. She may have some advice or some direction for me, but I may say like, this is what's going on here. These are some of the challenges, X, Y, Z. So, and it's important, like even making that point, it's important to discuss the challenges
that you're experiencing.
That individually, you're experiencing your relationship. We've got a stream coming up about that as well. And on that note, if there are any topics you guys really want us to touch on, to talk about, chuck it in the comments box, chuck it in the live chat, and we'll take those things up and like just commit them in prayer, and we'll discuss how we can bring those things out in some of the coming episodes that we've got. So I think we've been talking for a hot minute here. If there's any thing I asked you guys earlier on that you don't talk about or you do talk about, you're super comfortable talking about in marriage, drop that in the comments box so we can pick up some of those bits and pieces as well.
About talking about as well. And as well, if in your marriage you have a particular like way conversation style or things that you do that can help some of the people in the comments as well, feel free to write that in the comment section as well. The other thing I was going to add about conversation is about people being able to be creative.
Excuse me, yeah?
About how they engage in conversation with their spouse.
Enlighten us.
It's like, some people might like might not like to talk when children are around. Okay.
Yeah.
But the wife or husband wants to start having big conversation when the kids are around. And they're not noticing that the spouse just doesn't like having conversation when the kids are around, because there are certain conversations that can be had in front of children and some conversations that can't be had in front of children.
Absolutely. I agree.
So, when I say about being creative, these are some of the things that I'm talking about. Some people might actually like to talk in the bedroom. They've had their dinner, they finished everything, and it's quiet now, right? So it's also, when I say being creative, it's about taking the things that you know of your spouse and using that to both of your advantage, to develop the relationship. Yeah. So to create a good talking place. Yeah. Especially if you're going to have hard talk. You don't want to have hard talk in an environment that is not really conducive for that conversation.
Yeah, if you know that, hard talk generally can be like a volatile environment certain times. It's like we say, let's talk about hard talk for a minute. So obviously hard talk is where regularly you should have an opportunity where you have like a safe zone. We say this Marriage Matters stream here is a safe zone. We're here for you guys to really talk about the hard topics of marriage, and you guys can really bring anything here, and we'll talk about it in a non-judgmental fashion, bringing God's word and really trying to assist you in your marriage based on our experiences of implementing God's word in our relationship. So hard talk, if me and Sarah were going to have a hard talk, we'd basically set a time. You set a time maybe during the week, and we'd come together during that time. We'd be like, look, babes, I want to put all the cards on the table. All right, this is what happened. This is a challenge. I didn't like the way you did X, Y, and Z. I've been feeling a web, been harboring something for about a week now, and this is the time I want to bring it out. And you schedule hard talk in your calendar. It's funny you brought this up, because I was going to make the point actually. You schedule this in your calendar. This is a really important thing for us to do as couples. The more grace, the more seasoned your relationship becomes with grace, the more frequent and regular these conversations will be, and you can have them kind of more frequently. But to protect yourself, you want to do it on one occasion. Going back to Sarah's point, because it can be a volatile conversation, you want to kind of ensure that maybe children are in bed. You want to ensure that, or maybe you go away for lunch kind of somewhere. Maybe you sit in the car somewhere and you have that time to kind of offload on each other. And this is a non-judgmental opportunity to develop our conversation and our relationship in love. This is really important.
Definitely.
This is really important. So hard talk should be something that everybody is implementing in their relationship.
Yeah, and couples should be and couples should be implementing hard talk. However, if you know your marriage is in a place where it's just not ready for that, and you need to have counsel, then do that. Don't just go off and sit in the car, and then before you know it, the car's shaking and
that's right.
and all sorts are happening, and people are looking like, oh my gosh, what's happening over there? Or you go and have the conversation upstairs, and someone's running down, and the children thinking, oh, like, what happened? So if you know you're not really. And if you want to know more about understanding hard talk and how to actually implement into your relationship, feel free to message us and we can have that conversation with you, because it's definitely not something that you just do. Okay, especially it depends on what's going on in your relationship as well. If you're not really having much challenges and things like that, then, and you know each other quite well to a degree where you've had conversations, you've had hard conversations, and they've been very fruitful, then definitely go ahead. But if you know that things can get very volatile and
you want some support,
escalate
you want some
extremely quickly,
give us a shot.
That's right. So there was that. So and the other point that I was going to make regarding conversation is creating a bond. Creating a bond, and I think we've mentioned that anyway, but creating a bond in your marriage through conversation is so important, and it takes us a long way. When we're so tuned in with the things that we're talking about, when we're so tuned in with understanding how we think, and how understanding how your partner thinks, and your partner understanding how you think, and just really creating that bond where no matter what, you're there for each other, and you're there to talk to each other. And your partner, your husband or your wife, should always be your first go-to when it comes to anything. And if I'm saying that and you're thinking, nah, but my mum's my first go-to though, or no, wait, it's my sister, or no, it's my best friend, then that is definitely something that in your marriage you have to work on, because allowing outside influences to get you first, I don't think is the best thing to do in a relationship.
It's unhealthy for your relationship. That can undermine your relationship. And I know some people are like, oh, she don't get me, he don't get me. And
Let them get you,
yeah,
Jerry.
part of the reason they don't get you is because I'm guessing you've not been
Talk
open
to
in that
them.
area. Do you know what I'm saying? And
You know?
this is the thing. Like, I've spoken to husbands like for years on certain issues, and I'll be real with you guys here. I say it to the husbands on a regular basis. Look, you can't expect your wife to understand everything about you as a man and your disposition. You know, as a man, as a husband, like we're different. Okay, we are different, but
That's right.
it's important for us to engage them, to loop them in, and to ensure that we are, as Sarah said, building. We're trying to foster that safe space. That we're trying to develop that intimacy over time. This is really important stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
You want to jump to the comments?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see. I hope you guys are talking, chit-chatting away in there. If you've got any comments, any questions, if you've got any particular views on what it is that we're saying, and also if it's blessing you, just let us know as well. Right.
Where we at? Where do you want to start?
Doesn't look like we've got that many. We've got a lot of hellos today, thank God. So it says, Simply I Can Win says, loud and clear, watching from Kent. Hello.
Hello, Ken.
Yes. Hi. Good evening, Ecos Mios. We love having you on. Simply I Can Win says, hey, Princess at Grace and Queen Ecos Mios. Osa says, pronto all. And we are just having lots of greetings. Osa says, blessing. This is the Kim. Simply I Can Win says, I stayed away from talking about things which relate to my natural affections. I didn't want to talk about the things which are sacred for within marriage when not married.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think that's a powerful point. Anything that pertains to areas that can lead to temptation are dangerous.
Definitely.
So if you're kind of two people are courting,
Yeah.
and then you just say, look, you know, every time you batter your eyelids like that, something jumps inside me. Like, fam, you're looking for
that's
Pepe.
not a conversation. That's a statement.
Yeah, but it's like if you constantly entertain that kind of a conversation. So I totally understand the point that Simply is making there.
Yeah.
That's a reality.
Yeah.
That your conversation, like we talk about the scripture, like we should be having healthy conversation, holy conversation. You know what I mean? It's not like, every time you link up with someone, you're talking about, you know, the demonic world and the things that are happening out there on MTV Baseline. We watched an advert today. I don't know if you remember, and this advert was super sensual. Do you remember? You don't remember?
Right, yeah,
was it today or yesterday? Today.
Was it?
It was today. I think it was today. Super, and it's just like we were like, why? Kind of thing. Like, we were discussing the fact that someone had said, like, there was no need for that amount of sensuality in the advert. And that's just the way it is. So it's like, there needs to be boundaries in terms of what you talk about, the way you engage, and those kind of things. So hard talk's important. I think this is more really exposing what's within yourself. Innit?
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what Simply I Can Win is saying here. You know, that there are conversations that you don't have until you are married. You know, like certain things that you probably you like, you don't like, or certain things that might have happened, or certain things that you've been through, and these are sacred because it's only your husband or your wife that really should know certain things about you to that degree. You know, you can be engaged to someone. You don't need to go telling them everything because, like I said, nobody knows it until we've passed that gate. Yeah. You know, and we said bye-bye to the parents, and we said bye-bye to everybody at the church, and we're off now. Nothing's guaranteed until that point. So there are conversations that should only be spoken once we've got the rings on.
That's powerful. Thanks for that share. Appreciate that.
Yes.
Appreciate that so much. Simply I Can Win says, and Mr. I Can Win.
Oh, I think it's both of them, as in they're both there.
Okay, cool.
Hey, lovely.
Thank you for that. Next one says,
Ecosmio says,
depends how far into talking about natural affections you mean. I'm not talking about deeply intimate, but then again, I don't want any shocking surprises when married. Yeah, so I think so. This is okay. Let me draw the divide. I'll draw the divide like this. This is the way I draw the divide. If I'm talking to you about things that can cause you to lust after me, all right? If I'm in a position, if person A is in a position where they're feeling certain things and they share those things and it can cause, combustion, that's a problem. However, Sarah said it earlier on. She's like, talk about past relationships.
Yes.
There's no way I will permit my daughter or son to enter a relationship and they have not asked the question, how many people have you dated? How many intimate relationships have you had before now?
Exactly.
Do you know what I'm saying? What is your view of intimacy in relationships? So it's like there's a difference between, for me personally, there's a difference between the intimacy space, what's going on inside me, and, you know, our intimate history and past. Those things are important. And I would hope that Simply Like Cameron is also was able to kind of talk about their past relationships. But I think sharing things that can lead or move a person to sin and to lust is super dangerous. I think that's super dangerous.
Because as well, you know, marriages can actually break up, and I mean, it can, like, people can actually get divorced due to past things. As in, you should have told me that before we got married. Because if you told me that before we got married, I wouldn't have married you. You know, or whatever it may be. I'm thinking of an example, might sound a bit dramatic, but let's just to say a woman has a child. Before she's married, the child goes off to live with a different member of the family, as in she was just too young, you know, just couldn't, or she fostered, whatever, right? But that was her situation. Yeah. She didn't go down the abortion route. She decided to have a child, but she couldn't look after the kid, so she gave the kid away.
Absolutely.
Then she meets this wonderful man. They're on track. She wants to tell him, but she's just kind of like, oh, but if I tell him that, he said, you know, he thinks I'm you know, neither of us have kids. You know, he wants to be the first person to give me a child. And they start telling themselves all these kind of stories that then throws them off from exposing that truth.
Yeah.
Then, a few years later, it's like, you know, she has a baby. Then she's feeling absolutely terrible because that's not her first child. Then she's like, oh, by the way, that's not my first kid. It's like, what a bomb to drop.
I think there's two dramas with that. One I already shared, which is the
I think that's a bomb, guys.
which is that kind of privacy, basically, like allowing that privacy, allowing that privacy in the relationship, basically. So fostering that, you know, secret stuff that we're going to talk about in a couple of next episodes. But the other side of that is really where she chooses not to tell him. I think that the relationship is really not true. It's not a genuine place. I feel as though
but doesn't mean
sometimes
she doesn't love him.
Listen. I sometimes think that people are vindictive in that way, and they're like, oh, you know what? Later on down the line, when I tell them, they won't.
They can't escape.
Yeah,
there's no running away.
They won't care. But this is the thing. It's like some people can explode at that point in time.
Exactly.
Because it's like, were you ever really honest with me?
Exactly. What else are you keeping from me? Imagine if it's vice versa. Like a man has multiple children and doesn't tell the woman because men, you know, that they live with the mother. He never has to say anything. And then a few years down the line, she thinks she's the first one to give him kids. Blah 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 blah. Then a couple of 3 children come walking through the door. It's like, excuse me, what else didn't you tell me?
And I think this is a wrong way to start a relationship. And I think it's whether I know a lot of people just think, oh no, it's not in their interest. They're gonna. You said it just now. He will see her a certain way. She will take him a particular way. This is a good one. This is a good one. The problem is, they're undermining the other person at that point in time. And really, I think this is relationship failure 101. Starting a relationship. Listen, that's not friendship.
It's true.
That is not friendship.
But this is what I'm talking about, like, about what type of conversations should people be having pre and post. Yeah. You know, I definitely think that's a pre-convo.
Listen.
That is not a post conversation.
You need to go. Listen, if you don't know about hard talk, the hard questions, go back to the early videos and then check out the videos in this place, and you'll see what we're talking about there. Because I think there was a big list of questions that I shared. We shared there around about that. So
yes, but thank you so much, Ecosmios, for bringing for bringing that up.
Simply I Can Win. Was that because Edward was bilingual?
Edward, our European tennis friend.
Yes. No. So I think that's about talking. No, I don't think the talking part was really about him being bilingual at all. I think it was he understood the importance. Yeah, maybe him having multiple languages helped him to understand that, and I was just reaping the benefits of that, the fruits of that. But I think he genuinely understood, because what did I say? The first thing was smiling. Like, you're not gonna smile just because you're bilingual. You understand? He
understood the art of conversation.
He had it mapped.
That's good for such a young person. That's quite impressive.
Yeah, he had it down. I don't know who taught him that.
Ecosmio says maybe I should wear earrings more.
Boy, that may work for you. That may work for you.
I'm sure we love you anyway. With or without, and I'm sure without is even just as glorious for him.
Grace is laughing.
So yes.
Shirley, big
Good
hugs.
evening, good evening. Oh, wonderful, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. Okay,
Grace
so
says,
yeah.
welcome. We've got a question.
What if somebody takes the I'm just a very private person route and they generally find it difficult to share information, which then finds its way into the marriage?
Yeah, listen.
And I kind of made that point, remember, about someone growing up in an environment where the parents were private,
closed,
they were,
that's right.
and then they kind of take that into
Absolutely,
so go on.
absolutely. Grace, that's a wonderful question, amazing question, by the way. So I think, look, the fundamental is this: you don't want your spouse, would be, could be, to be, to find out something from anyone else aside from you first. It undermines the trust and it undermines the integrity of your relationship. I think that's a danger. You've just mentioned it just now, and maybe that really tackles this question in many ways. But I think hiding something, whether, like, look, I'm a private person, and you know that.
Yeah.
And obviously, that's the way, in many ways, we were trained. We were brought up in that manner. And I think it's important for a person to have a degree of mystery. Like, I'll be honest with you. Like, men like it when there's an air of mystery about a woman. I'll just be straight with you, okay?
The air of mystery.
Do you understand? So it's like it's a good thing. I just don't think if the relationship is going forward and it's a serious relationship and you're courting, you're heading towards marriage, I don't think it makes sense to go down that route. And permitting them to find out things otherwise. It's just like, just imagine, it's like, you're two people in a relationship, and then, like Sarah said, like, the person finds out 3 years in that this person's got another child somewhere else.
Oh, they're a secret millionaire.
Yeah. A, B, or C. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like those
It doesn't
things
have to be so bad.
those things are challenging. I think those things are challenging for the relationship, and I don't think it's helpful for the integrity, for the foundation of their friendship. Yeah, this is super important. Super important.
Because remember, like we said, friendship is a key aspect, strong foundation for any marriage. And obviously there are friends that you know things about, and there are friends that you don't know things about. And if you think about it, the friends that you know so much more about tend to be the ones that you're closest to. Yeah. Right? The friends that you just talk to here and there, the ones that you call, they call you friend, but you call them associate, and it's not really, you don't really have like a connection. You just know that person's, they're your friend, but they're not, they're not really a friend. But it's the ones that are really close, the ones that you talk to, you know stuff about, you do things together. They're the ones that you're like, yeah, you're my coat, like you're my, I'm there for you no matter what, blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of how we should look at marriage, but in an even more deeper level.
Yeah, I'll put it out like this way. Look, when we were young, my dad, I'm fairly sure, this is the way my dad broke it up. It's like, you have associates, you have friends, and there's a difference. There is a clear, and I share this with my children. There's a clear difference between an associate and a friend. Yeah. Like, I determine to build deeper relationship with friends. An associate is someone you may engage with, you interact with, but it's like there is no, you use a good word earlier on, substance. There's no real substance to the relationship. So we should be proactively building friendships, okay? Yeah. Listen, I'm not talking about in a marriage, I'm talking about outside that. We should proactively be building friendships. In our marriage, as Sarah said, we need to be proactively building a foundation of friendship in our marriage. This is massively important. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is super important for each and every one of us.
And what was it? Sealing up the cracks of that, what? The Holy Ghost?
I said that spiritual
spiritual filler. I love that.
Did Grace say?
Yes.
She came back. She said it may not be intentional, malicious, but will probably still cause issues. Yes. That's
definitely.
It. That's it. So true.
Yeah. Yeah. Esther says, I agree with you, Grace. Miss Icon says, great conversation, family. Thank you so much. I mean, for us, it's important for us to have conversations that are realistic, relatable, and just honest, because like we say, we're here because we want marriages to survive, we want marriages to mend, and we want to see, we want to see every married couple win and reduce the rates of divorce, especially even in the body of Christ as well. That's right. Reducing that rate. So we have to exactly. So we have to ensure that we're not just coming on here and having shallow conversations. I mean, even we might be saying things that some people might be thinking like, oh, that's a bit deep for a marriage, isn't it? But like, what else do you have if you could not take your marriage to a level where, you know how I kind of envision it. You know that they said there's a level in the sea when you go down that someone can't breathe anymore. Because there's no more oxygen. And I feel like a marriage, the foundation of a marriage should be able to be that deep. That no matter what happens, you're scratching and it's still okay. Certain things are knocking and it's still okay. Things are happening and it's still okay. You know, but then every time things do happen, you're healing it. And for us, and I think this is what is so key, you know. Again, you know, like I say on the show, it's like marriages are made of so many different layers, and we have to keep ensuring that we're keeping, you know, we got that home insurance going on. You know, that building and contents. You know, if anything happens, who do we go to? What do we do? How do we solve it? You know, are we bringing God into it to intervene? Are we praying about it? Are we bringing our accountability partners? How are we handling this? Or is it just let it just, like, you know, crash and burn?
I think one of the worst things we can do in marriage is permit problems to ensue without resolving and addressing those things. So it's like a husband and a wife get into a situation, there's a heated fellowship, as we like to call it, and then from the heated fellowship, there is no, as you said just now, there's no real healing. So it's like you guys have a fight, you have a bust up, and then there's no real mending. And, you know, you go from silent treatment to back to conversation, basically, and that happens again and again and again, and there's no real resolution, no real healing in a relationship. And what this does is it builds this weight, this anchor on the relationship, and it begins to pull and pull and pull, and then you get to a point where there's a stagnancy. There's this kind of lack of vitality in the relationship. And we solve these things by doing some of the things Sarah said. Now, you need to get an accountability partner. You need to ensure that there's healing and forgiveness that's being introduced in the relationship. You need to have a commitment and a focus to developing your relationship to the next level constantly. Then this is why I was talking about this, because even though we have great conversations, we want to take our conversation to the next level. We want to continue to deepen our conversational intimacy. This is super important, guys.
Definitely. Thank you, honey.
You ready? Yo. No, I'm right for now. Thank you. So Osa says he's supporting
Mrs. I Can Win. I think that was regarding to her point. Simply I Can Win says he will be trapped then. That is sad.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's true. And I'm sure they're talking about the person who finds out that the woman had a child, or vice versa. And that person is trapped because they don't get to make that choice anymore. Right. They're forced into becoming a step parent, if you get what I'm trying to say. And it's kind of like, okay, even though they might not be asking them to parent them or whatever, but it's still, that's just what it is now, isn't it? And that's the thing about when we're keeping things away from our spouses, when we're not exposing, because, you know, some people just think people don't like to be exposed. You know, people like to you know, have that thing where it's just kind of like, okay, you can't know everything about me because I just don't know what's going to happen. And again, it's a trust level, it's a trust issue.
Pre or post?
Post.
Yeah.
Post. Even because
that's bad, man. That's super unhealthy.
Even in some people's, listen, and I'm sure some of you will probably agree with this. Even people who are married now are still holding back on certain things because in their mind they're like, anything can happen, and if it does, at least I didn't expose that. At least I didn't tell her I had that 50 grand sitting in the bank somewhere offshore. Do you know what I'm saying? That I don't need to declare that in the divorce court. You know, kind of thing. Like, people generally keep secrets and don't say certain things because they're still walking in, you know, in that place of unsurety. Oh, this could end, you know, and if it does end, then at least I've still got my, you know. And typically that
mindset is what causes the relationship to end. They call it what do they call it? Self-fulfilling prophecy. So obviously they focus, because they have such a focus on it, they're never really fully given to the relationship. They always kind of have that reservation somewhere.
And I feel like that's why some people actually don't even get married. Like, some people are in relationships so long, that relationship should have been a marriage by now, but it's just not.
Go back and check the video in the playlist on that one, man. We spoke about that. Why was it? Why are you not married yet?
Why are you not married yet?
All right, cool. So Cosmeo says.
Oh no! Simply I Can says the truth will make you free. Hallelujah. Although, you know, even though I gave that example, I was still just like, that person shouldn't judge that person due to what happened to them
No,
in their past.
listen, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be forgiven. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed, they should be forgiven.
Yeah.
However, that is not a demonstration or a display of integrity, of honor, of value, of respect. And, you know, yeah.
So what happens, yeah, and guys, I know you listen to this as well, right? I'm just throwing this out there. What happens if she didn't say it pre-marriage, but then as soon as they got married, she was just like, "Hon, you know what? Like, this thing's really been itching me."
That's even worse. That's even worse, fam.
I thought I just have to drop that little scenario. I'm playing these scenes out in my head.
What do you lot think? It's when you're now married, pregnant, and in the doctor's office, and he asks you about your previous abortions, and the husband says none, and the wife says 2. Those conversations need to be had.
Ooh, the way he Cosmios drops these. This person.
Let me spot you for Cosmios, because
it's got right.
Cosmios is.
I love it. No, that is like, oh my gosh. Can you imagine? No, I don't think anybody should want to imagine that. But just like if that was ever someone's reaction.
Listen to what Cosmios said next. Living in bondage for real.
Oh, for real.
It's a drama, man, and it's like
you know, I had to just throw in that scenario, isn't it? No, but this happens on a daily basis. Women have experienced things pre-marriage, and are just
Men
don't
as well.
just yeah. I know, but I'm just talking about like obviously this is an example, honey.
Sorry.
You know, women have experienced certain things pre-marriage, and they just don't want to talk about it because maybe they've dealt with it. And they might have dealt with it with a counsellor, they might have dealt with it with their pastor or their pastor's wife or another friend from church or just a friend or family member. And for them, it's just like, that was the past. They don't want to go back there again, and they don't want to bring up all these emotions, you know. So when they meet someone, for them, it's just like, it's not an issue anymore, you know. So
the Bible said I'm a new creation, innit?
Exactly. They're just like, I just don't want to talk about it no more. But I'm sure that's like, yeah, that's the case for some people.
I'm going to the next comment.
Clearly, you shouldn't be doing that, okay? You
Grace,
shouldn't be doing that.
I think it's possible that she loved... Oh, here we go. I think it's possible that she loved him, but was acting from a place of selfishness. She only cared about her own feelings and not how her husband would feel and what it could do to him mentally. All right, so now I think we need to have a show talking about what is love. Because you don't love somebody and treat them that way.
Yeah, we've had that show, innit?
Well, we need to have another one because obviously we haven't done a very
look. She
job.
Didn't love him if she couldn't tell him something that happened, something so deep.
Love. Let me just. This is what I'm going to leave you on this. An attribute of love is selflessness.
That's right.
All right. Thinking of the other person more than you. So if a person is unable, and this is why these conversations are so important.
Yeah, they are.
Because remember we had a show called "Are You Marriage Material?" Mm-hmm. And this is if you are not ready.
That's what I'm saying. I think it was one of those.
If you are not ready to give up your identity, and so many people are like, yeah, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be me times 3. Like you're gonna be you divided by something. That's what people need to understand. I'm being so real because the challenge here is that, oh yeah, you know, it's gonna be. It's just going to be an opportunity for me to express myself. Listen, homeboy, you need to kick back. Like, it don't actually work like that. All right? If God is not at the center, this is the drama.
That's right.
A lot of people are trying to have these worldly, carnal relationships. You can't go into a marriage with carnality as your core character and think that you're going to win. That is a road to destruction.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And again, you know, for everyone here, everyone watching right now, I just really want you to take the time to just consider your husband or your wife right now. And are there conversations that you haven't had that you know are eating, you know, it's eating you up inside kind of thing, or there's just, you know, there's things that you've experienced that you just haven't told your spouse, you know, you just haven't told your spouse, and you know it causes certain things to happen and they don't know that's the cause. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Every time your spouse mentions something, you feel a way because you know. Or if you watch something, or whatever it is that you've been through, and you know that it causes certain emotional triggers in you,
talk to your husband or your wife about it. Share with them, but find the right time to talk to them about it. And don't just leave it because, like we've read in the comments, people are trapped. And it's not even just the other person. The person who's gone through is also trapped. Mentally, they're trapped. And the person who, the person who's on the other side is kind of trapped because they don't know this about their spouse, kind of thing. And then, so for me, there has to be, what's that? Transparency. That's the one. You need to make sure that there's transparency in your marriage, okay? Not transparency in your marriage for other people to be, coming and getting. Transparency between the two of you.
Did you catch what she just said? Yeah.
Okay.
Not that you should be transparent with your brethren or your auntie or uncle or one parent like this, but that you need to have a primary transparency.
That's right.
Between the couples.
That's right. Like cling film, that kind of transparency, not foil paper.
Oh my goodness.
Kitchen talk.
Where are we today?
Kitchen talk.
Goodness me.
Right, so Damilola.
Welcome back,
yes,
Damilola.
thank you so much for joining us again.
What happens if during deep conversation you realize your wife or husband is bringing the counsel from a demonic spirit without knowing?
Whoa.
Kanda brasi kitty.
Damola.
Listen, this is real. This is real too.
Please, guys, feel free to help us out on the comment. Not joking.
What would you do?
Right. Okay. So it says what happens during your during your deep conversation, you realize the wife or the husband is bringing the counsel from a demonic spirit.
So obviously, phase
without
one,
knowing. Oh, but what does that look? See, the first thing for me now, I need to visualize what that looks like.
So two people are talking.
Damola,
they're going into something.
Yeah.
And then the spouse now is possessed.
Who?
So they maybe don't know they're possessed. I'll make it more practical. Listen. So basically, that one of the members of the relationship has an influence, an external influence. So their mum maybe or dad told them something and they hold on to that thing deeply, but that word from their parent was demonically inspired. Okay. So they are now bringing an external demonic counsel into the heated space, the heated conversation. You know what?
But the thing, the point that Damola said, without them knowing.
So imagine. So one thing,
so we need to send them for deliverance, prayer,
100%.
and
so they might think it's someone else that gave it to them, or they might think, I had this really good idea, but it's not really godly, it's demonic. Right. So look, I think realistically, thanks Damola for this question actually, by the way. For me personally, and it's funny, this reminds me of a conversation I was having with a gentleman just quite recently. And there was no demonic possession there, but it just reminds me of the conversation. And what we kind of landed on, why I bring that in is because prayer is a 100%. Powerful, pertinent part of your relationship.
That's all I can think of right now.
So what I was saying in the conversation is that, sometimes we engage in conversations, husbands and wives, and we think that, I can convince her. I'll just, if I keep pressing, I'll convince her. She must listen. But the reality is there is a greater power of influence that God has over our spouses than we have. And it's foolishness for us to believe that, my spouse does everything I tell her to do. My spouse does everything I tell him to do because it's like we are living in a spiritual reality. I know everything here is physical. We are spiritual beings in a spiritual realm. So this kind of stuff happens, and it happens regularly. I'll be honest with you.
Marriages should not consist of Jezebel and Balaams. Hello.
She's going in. So what we need to do, we need to ensure.
Then definitely.
We need to ensure in this place, I would not attempt to convince this person. I'd draw back, in fact. Then I'd go away and I'd commit it to the Lord. I'd be like, Lord, this is because.
But that person's the wife.
Yeah, it's the wife.
Husband.
Listen. Attempting to battle the wife or the husband at that point in time.
It's true.
Is foolishness.
Exactly.
You can't tackle spiritual things with natural words.
That's right.
Yeah. No, just listen.
That's
you need to listen. This is demonic. This is the devil. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. You need to draw back. You need to address it properly.
But the blessing there is that the spouse knows,
has the awareness. You understand?
That it's from a demonic
place.
Thank you. So that's what's key. That's what's important, and that's the starting point. The fact that the spouse has acknowledged that it's coming from a demonic place gives that spouse the opportunity to deal with it from the spiritual aspect of things, and not just working on a physical level. So I really hope that helped them a lot. Yeah, and thank you for that as well.
You know what? I'd say something really quickly as well. I think. I'd be concerned if this was
a regular occurrence.
happening in a relationship, and the person didn't do you didn't have hard talk or really do good conversations before getting into that space. I know this happens all over the world because I was talking again recently to a young man. You know, when we're in relationships, we all put our best foot forward.
Yeah.
We all put our best foot forward. We put our best face on. We're our best cap. We want to present ourselves. This is me on an everyday. But everybody knows not everybody can be at their best behavior all day, every day. So it's important for us to really investigate, to really challenge the person that we are hoping to marry, or even now you find yourself married. Exactly. It's important to challenge ourselves so that we can grow and we can develop. Spiritual foundations are a core necessity to marriage. As much as we talk here about the practical stuff like conversations, accountability partners, all those kind of things, spiritual foundations are key. If you're not praying for your spouse, you're doing your spouse a disservice. You're doing your marriage a disservice. You're doing yourself a disservice. If you're not positioning yourself where you're taking spiritual counsel for your marriage, you are doing a disservice to your relationship. It's important. It's important. This is very important. We need the counsel of God in our relationships. That was a great question. Thank you, Demola, for re-anchoring us. Ecosmios, what if your spouse's natural inclination is to just not talk? How should that spouse address the other without seeming like nagging?
You know what? I was actually even just about to make a point on that. So it's a good thing. Asking your spouse, finding out how they like to talk, finding out what do they like to talk about, you know, and also that's what I was saying about being creative in engaging your spouse in conversation, as in finding out what makes them want to talk. Yeah. What topics what topics do they normally engage in? And you have to remember as well, with certain things, with some of these things, some of us are going to have to take those baby steps first. You know, especially if you are engaged, if you do have a spouse whose natural inclination is to just not talk. Yeah. You know, you have to, I mean, for me, not have to, but it's a good idea to encourage them to engage in conversation with you. And like I said, obviously, conversation's not a monologue, it's a dialogue. But at the same time, nurturing them to feel comfortable to want to talk. Because if every conversation they've had with you has turned out to be some blast, explosive, and they were just like, I just didn't even want to talk in the first place, that's going to put them off. So nurturing them, making sure that they're in a good environment, making sure that they're comfortable, making sure that the conversations that you're having is kind of like, is stuff that they can talk about. Yeah. You know, if you have someone who, let's just to say, doesn't like talking much, and then you start talking about, I don't know, something on social media, and you just know your spouse is just not on social media, you know they're not engaging all the latest news and the latest gossip, you can't try and have that conversation with them. And this is not even the type of conversation that we're even really talking about. Remember, we said we're not really talking about general surface level conversation here. So, you know, if you find that you say to your spouse, "Hun, can we kind of talk about our childhood? What was it like in school for you? Like, well, who's your favorite teacher? Yeah. Blah 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 blah." You know, you start talking to them about things that can sort of trigger emotions, trigger feelings. And so again, it probably is a little bit challenging, especially if the person just isn't talking. Yeah. What can you do apart from tell them the honest truth? Hun, if you don't start talking to me, there's gonna be issues here.
I was gonna say, what did you do? Because
it's like,
I feel like that was me when we kind of
and I just spoke you to the point that you just had to start talking, hun.
And I was gonna say that, like, I think two things I'd say. One aspect is really attempting to, as Sarah said, pick out the things that they enjoy talking about. Oh, yeah. So really try to find common ground to discuss with them. Definitely. But the other thing I'd say is just be persistent.
Patient.
You have to be persistent.
And patient.
I think the 2 Ps. I think persistence is super key because it's the longer you go at it, that the greater the greater results you'll get from it, basically. So I mean, even when you think about it, like, you didn't really like going out much. You didn't really like mingling with people that you didn't really know. Yeah. You were more comfortable kind of like to just stay at home or whatever. But the more I was kind of like, "Hun, can you come here with me? Can you go there with me? Can you come here with me? Can you come to this wedding? Can you come to this engagement? Can you come to blah, blah?" Then you started, coming out, and when people would see you, they were like, "Oh my days, like, you're out." It literally was like, "Oh my gosh, Zeke is here," kind of thing, And you got comfortable, but then you still didn't overdo it. Like, you got to a place where you just, "No, I'm not coming." But then there were times where you'd be like, "Okay, I will come." But that took time. It took time for him to get to that place where he started becoming a lot more outgoing than before. So my issue wasn't really
getting him to talk as much. My thing was like, I don't want to go out by myself. Come with me. You know, our friends, my friends having a birthday party and dinner, and they're going to be there with their cup. Let's go together, kind of thing. So obviously everyone has their different aspects of things that relate in a similar way, but then, like my husband said, it's just about being persistent, and it's about just keep pushing, but don't do it in an aggressive way where you're going to even make them close down even more.
Yeah, I think listening is super important. I think if you're really if you really desire to develop that conversation, listening is key, because the more you listen, you're able to find those things where your spouse really engages over, and you can engage them over those things, and I think that really helps. Listen, I know that can be a little bit awkward, because you may then be going out of your depth to talk about things that you maybe not know about, but that's like, these are just initiators. As you initiate these things, and then the practice comes where you're talking to them more about the stuff they like to talk about, then it becomes more customary to have those kind of conversations, and you can switch things up as you progress.
As well, I'm sure with this, husbands or wives with this particular type of attribute, there is a time and a place where they do like to talk. You just have to also find that time and place.
Yeah, and so the tail end of that, the tail end of that comment mentioned nagging, and so I guess.
Did it?
Yeah, so
without nagging.
Yeah, so I guess without going deeper into it, like I couldn't really follow that last part, but I think it's really about being persistent, being patient, as Sarah said, looking for those cues, looking for common ground, so you guys can discuss and really pick things up. E. Cosmo said she had probably fallen in love Hollywood style.
Wait, where are you?
Yeah, it's just a comment above. So
okay, right.
I'm not totally sure.
Oh, the person that Grace mentioned, maybe she did love him, but she didn't really want a thingy.
Okay, yeah, got it.
So Ecos Mios is saying maybe she fell in love Hollywood style, which is falling in love the world way. The world's way. We don't fall in love, people.
Yeah, exactly.
Go back. Fall in love.
Go back. Check the playlist. We've got videos on that.
That's right.
Ecos Mios says to Damola,
I'm sure that made Damola laugh. Simply I Can Win family, they say time to pray, which day and time.
We've got some supporters there, so anyone that you know that is challenging, anyone that you know that's challenged with that, look, Simply I Can Win is ready to connect. And
I
pray.
like that. I like that.
Let's pray.
Yeah, and funny enough, we do have a time to pray on Wednesdays on Facebook. Please feel free to drop your prayer requests in. It's so true. It's so true.
Cosmios.
Yes.
That one will go from conversation to warfare real quick. So you see what we got some prayer. Some prayer people.
Chris says word. Yes, word.
That's
to
warfare.
That.
Time for warfare.
Right, time for warfare. Listen, and it's funny because relationships, we should be going into warfare, pray for our relationships. Do you know what I'm saying? Because there's so much against marriages right now. And we do have to be able to be in a place where we engage in prayer for our spouse. We engage in prayer for our children, for our marriages, for our finances. And we just hit hard, and we're able to get on our knees and cry out to God and just say what it is that needs to be said and done.
Listen,
for our marriage.
If you're having good times in your relationship right now and you think that, the enemy is there clapping for you, celebrating,
golden banners
popping
out,
party poppers for you lot, it's a joke thing. Like from real early in our relationship, I will tell Sarah on a regular, you know what?
Yes.
As much as we're here, we're enjoying, there are people out there that are hating what's going on here.
That's
and it's
right.
not just natural, it's spiritual.
That's
It's
right.
important for you to understand it's the spirit.
Right.
The enemy will inspire people to dislike and to disdain what you do and begin to kind of speak negative things over you. So it's very important what Sarah's saying and what everyone's saying in the comments about warfare. It's really important.
And that's why it's important to know who you're having conversations with about your marriage. Okay, because we're talking about conversations, and I think it's still important that we must continue to elaborate on the point that conversations outside, also people have to be wary with the type of conversations that they're having outside.
Don't be chatting to everyone about your business, fam. It's not a joke.
Okay, free advice, guys. Free advice.
E. Cosmo says, that was my next question. Where did that demon come from? Look, I think we tackled it. I think we tackled it a little bit, but it's important. Like, everybody has influences. Everybody,
That's right.
Everybody comes from somewhere, and that somewhere has some things in that environment. So if people are not coming from a place of godliness, they're not coming from a place of peace, but they're coming from a place of X, Y, and Z, versus some people are coming from a place of godliness, coming from a place of peace, a place of wisdom. And it's really about evaluating those things as couples. Look, we got to ask these questions early, man.
That's right.
Listen, if someone is, let me start with this. God forbid, that's how people want me to start it. If you are engaging or courting someone who is demonically possessed, you want to know that before you enter matrimony, not after.
But what are the signs now? What are the
We'll
signs?
talk about this in class.
Exactly. We will listen. Like we've already mentioned, if there are topics that you want us to talk about on this show, please feel free to leave that in the comment. Don't forget to press that like, share, subscribe buttons. Yes, and let more people get involved in the conversations that we're having and enjoying here today. We really appreciate each and every one of you. Honestly, press that subscribe and like button and continue to share. Right, okay, so we've got Nubian Warrior Princess. Yes,
She says, welcome, Nubian Warrior Princess. Nubian Warrior Princess says, I think it's your first time here. Thanks for being on the show today. Not everyone wants to talk, but everyone communicates. Find out how your spouse wants to communicate with you and compromise on how you can both communicate and be heard without compromising your stand. I think that's an interesting point. And I will agree that we all do communicate. I'm constantly talking to my children about body language, the importance of body language, the importance of eye contact, those kind of things there. I will express or reiterate the point I made from earlier on. Conversation, talking is spiritual power, spiritual intimacy. It's important that we understand this. All right, that talking fosters intimacy in your relationship. Right. So, and I think maybe Nubian Warrior Princess is making that point based on Ecosmos's point earlier on. You know, that if their spouse is not talking that way inclined to talking,
that way inclined. That's right.
And it's very important that the conversations that are being had, are valuable.
Yeah,
Do you
to
understand?
them as well.
Yeah, because this is my concern.
Because some people don't just want that surface level.
Everybody is talking to somebody.
That's right.
Everybody's talking to somebody.
That's
so
right.
if someone's spouse is not a talker at home, but maybe they're outside their talker, or someone's spouse likes to talk about football, but they don't want to talk about,
the deeper
top model or whatever they call it. I don't know what I was thinking about. I shouldn't have said that. What I meant to say was what's that Simon thing?
X Factor.
All of those things there. That's what I meant to say. Those shows, the show. Maybe it's top model for you lot, some of you lot. But the reality is, we need to find a space where we can communicate, and this is it here. Nubian Warrior Princess knocked it on its head, and I think it's important. All right,
yeah, definitely.
There is a degree of communication that we need to ensure that we're getting. Remember, conversation is spiritual power, spiritual intimacy, talking. All right. Osa Ikimwin says spiritual counseling is key, 1 to end. I think that's the truth. If we don't allow God Almighty to break into our relationships, if we don't permit spiritual insight, spiritual counsel to support us, when a person finds out that they're dealing with someone, a spouse, a friend who is possessed demonically, this is a challenge. This is a major challenge.
Grace says that's it. This is it.
At Nubian Warrior Princess.
Yes. And Demola says, what if after marriage one of the couples develop a mental illness that inhibits their ability to get into communication? Ooh.
Yeah, this is powerful. That's a really powerful question. And I think Nubian Warrior Princess kind of tackled this just a moment ago. Almost, I guess maybe she preempted this, but I think it's important to understand we communicate in many different ways.
Yeah.
I've got a good friend, who is not as talkative as everybody else, basically. Yet this friend, we could sit together just quietly and just be in the same room, being in the same space. And that is a form of fellowship for us. Do you understand that? We might break into little bits of conversation here and there, but the two of us can be in a room together. It will be fairly silent, mostly. And yet we're able to communicate. So that's just a friend I'm talking about. So in terms of a person who's with a spouse, look, our fundamental is this, and we've said it so many times, divorce is not an option. Divorce should never be an option. So you are going to have to find a way to work through these things.
Yeah, definitely.
Let me tell you this, real talk. One of the things I'll be doing is this. I'll be taking a spouse's hand and praying with my spouse regularly.
Oh, hallelujah.
I'll be praying with my spouse regularly. That's one level.
Of communication, right.
There is Bible reading. I'll sit and read my Bible. If you're not a Bible that way inclined, you might read books together. You can listen to music.
That's
wholesome, healthy, refreshing, strong, good music. Sit down and, you share experiences together. I will again reiterate the point I made earlier on. I said it a moment ago. Talking is spiritual intimacy, spiritual power. This is where Sarah made a point a lot of the time, and a good number of times today, about dialogue versus monologue. This may be a scenario where monologuing is all you've got. You think that just because the spouse can't talk back to you, they still may enjoy the sound of your voice.
That's right.
And this may be an opportunity. Those that we've been talking today about, some of us who got more than others. This might be an opportunity where that person is in their element because they get to talk, and obviously the other person gets to listen. So there are a number of things that we can do in a scenario like that to ensure that we are still fostering intimacy within our relationships. I think we should never forsake the idea of talking, and it's fundamental to our makeup. I think it's fundamental to what God has set in motion for us in terms of marriage. So I think that's powerful. You got something to say on that?
No, I think you just kind of end that ability. Obviously, the question, was talking about their ability to get into communication, but like you said, there are different ways that you can engage with someone who can't communicate back with you at the same level that you can. There are many different things that you can do.
Absolutely.
And then again, obviously, it also depends on what you're trying to get out of this person.
The relationship.
Sorry, it depends on what you're trying to get out of the relationship based on their current situation, because mental health is not permanent. It's not permanent. So there's that patience, that level of patience as well, and endurance that you will definitely, the other spouse will need to ensure that they that they keep pushing on, keep loving, keep walking in godliness, keep ensuring that they're there for that person, so that at any time that person is ready to even have a slight conversation, you're there, and you're ready, kind of thing. So
God has the power, man. God has the power. God is able.
Definitely.
God is able.
Thank you guys so much. Okay, so
Nubian Warrior Princess and Demola. Find another way to communicate. It could be through music, writing, creating an atmosphere where someone feels they are in a safe zone and can let their guard down.
Oh, wonderful.
If someone makes sure they are talking... Sorry, what was that? If someone makes sure they are talking to you and someone else outside your marriage. Yeah? Oh,
that's two different ways. You jumped.
I'm sorry.
Let their guards down. If someone... Oh, no, you must have seen it all then. It just says if someone...
Okay.
Oh, okay. No. You're right.
Okay.
Read it, because I think the messages came in at different points.
Sorry. If someone feels like they are the center of someone's attention, they'll drop their guard. The bottom line is, if your spouse isn't talking to you, they are talking to someone else. It's that simple.
That's right.
So make sure they are talking to you and someone else, and not someone else outside your marriage. Praise the Lord.
That's right.
Thank you, Nubia Warren Princess, for that. I think that's super important, and it's abundantly clear there. This again relates to some of what we heard from Cosmos earlier. I think in some ways it relates to what Damola said as well, and I think these are important things for us to just take note of.
Yeah.
Conversation is intimacy. All right, spiritual power, spiritual intimacy. We need to ensure that we are making concerted efforts, focused efforts. Okay, we are dedicated to developing our conversational intimacy with our spouses. This is vital. This is key.
Definitely. The Thompsons.
I want to jump back just one. We missed one comment. I'm going to come back.
Okay, it says Ecosmios.
Just got that at Simply I Can Win.
About the prayer.
Okay.
The Thompsons, Real Talk, and yes, with a love heart.
Praise God. Praise God. Is that the last comment?
Yes.
Praise
I was even just going to say that throughout all of this...
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. Throughout all of this conversation, it's important to ensure that you're both each other's center of attention.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we have busy lives. Yes, some marriages are filled with bountiful, beautiful children, and there are so many different things going on, but we must find time for each other to engage in these conversations. And it's not trying to talk to your spouse when they're walking up the stairs and you're like, I'm talking to you. It's not about that. And as well, sometimes, I don't know if any of you can relate, but People talk to their spouses when they're doing something.
Yeah, come on.
And expect them to be listening
Come on.
and catching everything that they've said. And then it's just like...
Yes, I do.
Right? And then it's like, oh yeah, but I was talking to you the other day and you just was listening to me. You were doing something else. Hello?
Yeah. You need to make dedicated time for conversation. This is super important.
Yeah.
What Sarah's saying
and
here.
let's not get ourselves worked up because we're not thinking about the times that we're actually about to have conversations. You know, if your spouse has had a lousy day, you know, you just know that they've had a terrible day, and then you want to start having hard talk, or it's hard talk day.
Yeah.
You know, you can rebook it because you just, you know, you can sense that that's actually not going to go down too well. And then if it is hard talk day and you know they've had a lousy day, then it's probably time to have a conversation that's a lot lighter, that can make them laugh, you know, engage in something, you know. But and as well, I was going to say that sometimes using a good healthy movie can spark conversations, you know, especially with that person who maybe doesn't talk a lot.
That's right.
You might be able to watch a film with them that can engage in a exactly that can make a conversation come up later. So there are different things that we can do as couples to ensure that we're having healthy, strong, viable conversations, and we're not just, you know, the general ones. They're there for us to enjoy. They're there for us to just enjoy the sound of each other's voices, you know, and stuff like that. But there are conversations that we need to have that will continue to heal and bless our marriages.
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Right. So we've got Ecos Meals. Many people.
No. Nubian.
Oh, it's been deleted.
Is it? Okay.
It's been deleted.
Sorry.
Okay. So it says, many people even have the saying work wife and work yay. I can't even finish that one. Work wife and work husband.
I think the spiritual ramifications of that are
oh my gosh.
Even as far as claiming people of the same gender,
sex.
Yeah.
Sector of the same sex, having someone separate you confide in at work, that is same sex, that is nuts. Work wife, work husband, there should be no such words coming out of married people's mouths. Okay. And if you've ever had that said, then definitely, you know, you need to be speaking to your, I'm sure they're not going to turn around and say that to their actual spouse though. I have a work wife. Do you know what I mean? That's that's secret stuff. I don't think they're saying that to their spouse.
No, I think they might say, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised, but it's just a phrase that they throwaway phrase that they use. Yeah. Okay,
yeah, sometimes those throwaway phrases I'm not so familiar with. I don't use them.
I hear you. Listen, guys, it has been a blessing and an honour just to share this time with you, to fellowship with you, and just to talk marriage. Let's see some love hearts
in the comments.
All right,
if you've had a good time, if you've engaged, and if this has really blessed you, you know, just like I said, please share it with other people that you know. Absolutely. The whole purpose of this conversation, this playlist on this channel, is for us to help you and people like you in relationships, in marriages, develop stronger, strengthened, empowered relationships. Right? We want to kick divorce out the window kind of strengthen what we're doing here with marriages. So please remember, if anybody that you know is kind of struggling or challenged with the area of marriage, point them to our videos, point them to this playlist. If there's a video that's blessed you before or really helped you in terms of a specific area, share that video with a friend or a family member so that they too can be blessed and benefit from the content we've got on this channel. Yes. Every marriage matters. Come on, absolutely. Every marriage matters to God, so it matters to us. Listen, I've been Ezekiel. And I've been Sarah. We've been here today for Marriage Matters Live. And hopefully stay for the boogie. We won't cut the... We want to make sure you go grab your husband and your wife and have a little dance. Let's go.